Just give me a second.
My gosh.
Oh, hamstring. Up. Sniper, take the other picture.
Yeah, I mean that's how you can formulate opinions without having true facts.
I'm telling you, think about it logically for just a second.
Dear Reds fans, welcome back to the Zebra Zillionaires. It was a tough one yesterday.
Live from Chatterbox Sports Studios, it's Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman.
Good morning, and a pleasant good Wednesday morning. They call it Hump Day. Get through today and start cruising closer to the weekend. Beautiful sunny day. Temperatures again in the low 70s here in Hamilton, Ohio. Does it get, boys, any better than this?
well, it's absolutely gorgeous out here, Tom.
It does not get better than this.
It's not, absolutely not.
Everybody all right today?
Yeah, I'm doing great.
You kidding me, Tom? You just said it doesn't get better than this. How could you have a bad day?
Casey, you all right today?
Yeah, I'm having a good day. Having a fantastic day. What?
I think
What's so
Casey,
funny?
I think
Rolling
Casey
right
already got
along.
into that issue 2 stuff. I think
You might be
Yeah.
I think
You might be
Casey's
right.
acting a little goofy this morning.
Absolutely.
Pass with flying colors.
He's got a trail
That's
of
what Casey's
gummies
seeing
from
right
here to
now.
Mason all along the road. Well, good morning and welcome to Off the Bench, presented by our good friends at United Dairy Farmers. I'm Thom Brennaman. We come your way Monday through Friday, 10
A.M.
to 12
p.m.
And you can find us on YouTube. Just go to the Chatterbox Sports page. We broadcast live every day on X, formerly Twitter. If you'd rather join us in podcast form, thousands of you do on a daily basis, and we appreciate it. Just search Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman, and you're dialed in. Okay, a day off yesterday. Bengals are back at it today, prepping for Sunday's home game with Houston. Now, we will know more later today on the condition of star wide receiver Jamar Chase. Remember now, he injured his back in Sunday night's win against Buffalo. Should the Bengals hold him out of this Sunday's game to give him a little extra healing time, thus to be ready for next Thursday night's game in the big showdown in Baltimore? Well, who better to talk about these kinds of conversations than Super Bowl winning head coach Brian Billick, kind enough to join us from Columbus, Ohio. Coach, good morning. How you doing today?
Good morning, guys. I'm not having as good a day as you all, I guess, but it's good. A little overcast here.
Well, here in Cincinnati, sky's always blue, as you know, Coach. Always blue skies and sunshine. Hey, and now walk me through this. I'm being totally serious because, I've never been privy to being in there, right? You come into the facility on a day like today. You're going to start practicing after a day off yesterday. Chase has this terrible landing on the ground you saw the other night when he went up into the air, came straight down on his back. Chris Collinsworth says right on the spot, he says, man, I've been there. He is going to crawl out of bed tomorrow morning. This is going to hurt so bad. And when he showed up on Monday, he said he is hurting badly. As long as there is no structural damage to any player, okay, as far as their back or their knee or whatever it might be, walk us through what the conversations are like and who's involved in those when you're trying to make a decision about a guy playing in 4 days from now.
It's up to the docs. And the pivotal question is, again, it's always, are you hurt or are you injured? If you're injured, if you can do more harm, that's one thing. If you're just hurt, if you're hurting, everybody's hurting, and you just deal with that. So you're right. Is it muscular? Is it a bruise? Or did he do something more along the joints or the back? And that's for the docs to say. The first question is always, will he damage it further if he plays? Will it make it worse if he plays? Will it be substantially better if he doesn't play? So those questions have to be. The player's going to tell you, yeah, I'm good to go and I'm fine. for the most part. But it really is, you have to answer those questions. You want to be very careful about, well, let's hold back and, we can play Houston and do okay without them, but we don't really want them there for Baltimore. You got to be very careful about cherry picking who plays and who doesn't based on injury, on the every week is a battle. So it really comes down to the Docs and will it loosen up enough?
All right, you watched the Bengals, I'm assuming, a little bit on Sunday night. Maybe I shouldn't assume that. I mean, it seems like every time the Bengals here over the last 3 years, after forever, every time they showed up in a primetime game, they'd get their brains beat in and they'd look terrible. But since Joe Burrow has been here, primetime games are undefeated. They're undefeated at home in primetime games. I mean, did you think that Sunday night they made a statement to the rest of the league that, hey, we might have taken our lumps to begin the year at 0-2 and 1-3, but here we come?
Oh, I think the entire division, it's getting interesting because I think the Browns, the Bengals, and the Ravens all made huge statements. When you get to the mid part of the season, it's one of three things. You're either getting better, which all those three teams definitely are. You're just kind of up and down, 500. We got a bunch of teams like that. Or you are what your record says you are, and you're just not very good. Those three teams all are showing sign. Baltimore is showing a little bit of rhythm, particularly the last couple of weeks. They have just blown out their opponents and looked very, very good against, what had looked like a pretty good Seattle team. The Browns are the most interesting to me because that defense, and now it looks like Deshaun Watson is getting a little bit of rhythm, kind of getting the system under him. And yes, the Bengals, I think they, against a very good Bills team, Joe Burrow looks like he is really, really healthy and playing well. Now they got to have Jamar Chase there, obviously, but I think all three of those teams in the AFC North are as good, or have shown that they're as good as anybody clearly in the AFC, maybe in the entire NFL.
I want to talk about Cleveland just for a second because I agree with you. I find them to be one of the most fascinating teams in the league. We know their history. We know all that. We know about Deshaun Watson. He started the year, didn't look very good. Then he sat out for a while. He comes back last week. He looked good. He didn't look great, but he looked good. He looked better than he has most of the time this year. They lose Chubb, but they continue to run the football effectively. And you know, Brian, better than anybody, in this AFC North, when that weather starts getting bad, Cleveland's ability on the offensive line, Baltimore too for that matter, not so much the Bengals and not so much Pittsburgh, at least so far. But I think there's where there's a serious advantageous level to their style of play as this season moves on. You agree with that, or do we make a bigger deal out of that, the whole weather thing and being able to run the ball?
No, that's real. That's substantial. I mean, you look at the Ravens, they ran for almost 300 yards against a Pete Carroll defense and had the ball for 40 minutes. That is hard to overcome. This week's game against the Browns is going to be fascinating to me because the Browns defense is for real. If you look at those three teams, I think Cleveland is the sleeper because, like I said, I think Deshaun Watson's beginning to get his legs underneath him. Joe Burrow looks good. Lamar Jackson is doing what Lamar Jackson does, and they're running the ball. But the defense of the Browns is clearly the best of the three. So if Deshaun Watson can continue to progress, and I agree, he looked good, didn't look great, but I think he's got, because I'm a big Deshaun Watson fan as a player. I think he can be spectacular. And I think as he gets back into rhythm, coming back off that injury, and Kevin Stefanski kind of gets used to how to use them, coupled with that defense, this is going to be a very interesting game, how the Ravens fare against that Browns defense. And indeed, if Deshaun Watson, and they have to be balanced. They're going to have to run the ball as well as throw the ball. This is going to be an interesting week with Cleveland at Baltimore.
Look, I know because you really follow the Ravens. You follow the whole league, whether it was your days at Fox or the NFL Network, and just because you love football. But I got to tell you, and maybe you look at me and you just go, duh, because you've done that probably 15,000 times since we've known each other. But, I watched Lamar Jackson this year, Coach, and I always knew he was good. I'm not sure I knew he was this good.
Well, they brought in a new coordinator to enhance the passing game. More importantly, they brought in a receiving core. This is probably the best, not superstars, but top to bottom. They've always had Mark Andrews is outstanding. OBJ is contributing. This other young tight end likely is very, very, very good and getting better. Bateman, Flowers, Aguilar, good. They all serve a role. So I think to answer the question, yeah, Lamar's pretty darn good. And his efficiency the other day, he only threw it 26 times, but he was 21 of 26, almost 200 yards, chipped in another 60 yards rushing, of course. The fact that they ran the ball with Keaton Mitchell had over 130 yards. Gus Edwards averaged 10 yards a carry. 300 yards against the Pete Carroll defense rushing. That's incredible. So Lamar, in conjunction with that, the guys, let's put it this way, he is good enough. I'm always asked the same thing. Okay, your choice, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, or Lamar Jackson. Who do you take? And that's an interesting question. Obviously, in the totality, Lamar gives you such a dynamic 1-2 punch. But in terms of quarterback play and can you win with that quarterback, that's a different question. But yeah, is he good enough? Yeah. And they're playing good defense, not top of the league, not as good as maybe as Cleveland is right now, but they're playing good enough, particularly when the offense holds on to the ball for 40 minutes.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling what they're doing because you're right. They're not just beating people. They're blowing people out of the gym. But that's a big game this week. Walk me through if you're Robert Saleh. All right? Now, you go out and you get Aaron Rodgers, you've got an outstanding defense. There's another defense that is really good when you watch them play. They get after the quarterback. They're tough. They're physical, all those kinds of things. And now the season falls into the lap of the guy you didn't want to be around anymore. You kept him around as a backup in Zach Wilson. Saleh has said, look, the kid's getting better. But how is he, now there's starting to be some little cracks. Not that they said anything, but it was more what they didn't say from the tight end and from Garrett Wilson and from some other guys on offense about how frustrating it must be. How does he hold this thing together? Because they're still right there for a chance to make the playoffs.
Yeah, he doesn't. The team has to. The locker room has to. When we had our Super Bowl run in the Ravens' first Super Bowl, people forget we had a 4-game losing streak. And we had a month where we didn't score an offensive touchdown. Now, you talk about the ability for that to tear a team apart. And this game against the Chargers is a perfect example. The defense did play well. They only gave up 136 yards passing to Justin Herbert. They gave up less than 100 yards rushing. And they lost 27-6. So that begins to the futility and the defense looking at the offense, and that's a tough one. And do that all he can to fight. They're that middle of the ground team. I said, that they're sometimes bad and they're flirting with 500, and trying to make a run at this thing. But it really does he have the veteran leadership in the locker room to kind of hold that together to say, yes, we can work past this. I don't know. And in a place like New York, it makes it doubly tough.
Yeah, look, I know you got to get to the dentist, but I just want to follow that up with one thing. You've given Aaron Rodgers all this money. I don't think anybody on the planet thought that Aaron Rodgers might come back and play. I can't believe watching him moving around and the way he's moving around already just 7 weeks after he ruptures his Achilles tendon the opening week, 8 weeks, whatever it is. But with that offensive line, if he comes back and let's say you got 3 to go and you're 2 out, or you got 2 to go and you're 1 out. I know it's Aaron Rodgers, so if he walks in the door, he's going to say, I'm playing, and they're going to play him. But, would you even want to risk it as bad as that line is?
First off, I would be stunned if he indeed can come back from a ruptured Achilles. I had a severed Achilles. And not to put that in the same context, but about the same age. That takes a while. The mobility, the stiffness, and it feels pretty good fairly quickly until you really go to load on it, and then that's where it's whoa. This thing is not right. So first, for his ability to come back and play in this year, I would just be stunned. But I agree. If they're getting near the end and the way the offensive line, he'll want to do it. Is it the smart thing to do? I'm not sure it would be to put him back out there again at a time when I just can't imagine he'd be healthy enough. But behind an offensive line where him moving around is going to be a premium, I don't know. I'd have to rethink that one.
All right. All right, Brian, we thank you so much for your time as always, my friend. Good luck at the dentist. Hopefully no pain. All gain, no pain.
I hate the dentist. This is not a good day. All right, man.
All right, buddy. I'll see you later. Coach Brian Billick, Super Bowl winning head coach, took the Ravens to the playoffs 7 times during his outstanding coaching career. He's in the Ravens Ring of Honor, Hall of Fame, rightfully so. I found that part about who makes a decision very interesting because talking about Chase's situation, Jamar Chase. And when he walks in the door, and Brian made the comment, he says, 90-something% of the time, the player's going to walk in and say, I'm okay, I'm good to go. Now, Chase was as open and honest as you could possibly be. Now, remember, they played a Sunday night game. They had to be in the building on Monday to look at film and all that kind of stuff. So, how excited guys are to want to have to turn around and talk to the press or the media and all that kind of thing when they open up the locker room on a Monday relatively early after the Sunday night game. I don't know. But Chase, he laid it out there. I mean, he's using words like, I'm praying this thing gets better. And he's like, it is really sore. And I don't know what this week, may bring. So, I don't know if, today all of a sudden he's had 48 hours worth of treatment and he feels like $1 million. Hopefully that's the case. But that's got to be a tough conversation to have.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you're talking about a guy, and I think Casey brought this up yesterday, where Jamar was the guy at the beginning of the year who said, listen, if Joe Burrow's not 100%, let's rest it. So Jamar obviously has that thought process in his mind. Maybe he'll do that himself. I think as Bengals fans, we talked about this yesterday, said that if the Bengals need Jamar Chase to beat the Texans, then maybe we're not as good as we think we are. That being said, if he can play, I'd like him out on the field, but we don't need to push anything this Sunday. So if Jamar wants to play, he wants to play, but you certainly gotta be cautious, knowing the 2 weeks, the two great defenses that you play against the Ravens and the Steelers in the following 2 weeks. That you can't push Jamar this week. You can't push him.
Yeah, I agree. If it's because of the injury, right, you don't play him. If he's genuinely hurt, you don't play him. If it's because it's the Texans and it's a bye week, is what we're going to call it, then that's not a good enough reason, and he should probably play. But if it's all about the injury, if it's 100% about his injury getting better for the rest of the season, you don't play him. But it just seems to me like a lot of people are taking this game like a bye game, and I don't like it.
Yeah, you brought up this yesterday, and I agree with you. And you heard Brian Billick basically agree with you when he said the same thing. When you start cherry picking about, okay, well, we got these guys and we got those guys. But look, that's human nature, right? I mean, when you look at the rosters of the two teams, I mean, Reed makes an extremely valid point there, that if you look at the rosters of these two teams, the Bengals should be able to beat 100%. The Houston Texans without Jamar Chase. They should. They still have T. Higgins, who now all of a sudden is starting to show up, right?
Yep.
Run game's been a little better outside of that pitch sweep stuff. I mean, I just wish that Zach Taylor would just throw that straight in the trash. Defenses are too fast for that nonsense now. It doesn't work. There was a time and a place. It doesn't work anymore. Linebackers are running 4.3 40s. You got defensive linemen that weigh 300 pounds that are running 4.6 40s. It doesn't happen anymore. But anyway, I digress. But hey, C.J. Stroud threw for 470 yards last week. Yeah. 470 yards. He took them down the field with 47 seconds left for a game-winning touchdown drive. They present a challenge now.
And not to mention that it's the Bengals right now are 5-3 in their fourth place in the division. They're in fourth place. You lose this game, it doesn't look great. You're 5-4, still in fourth place with a brutal gauntlet of a schedule coming up. I know what Reed's saying. If you can't beat the Vikings, if you can't beat the Texans, what are we doing? I agree with that. to a certain degree. It's not a lock that the Bengals are in the postseason yet. Every game
Certainly
still,
not a lock.
every
certainly not a lock.
every game still matters. This Texans game, I know the spread's like a touchdown and a half.
It is?
It's like 8.5 points, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's a lot of points.
I know it is. That's what I've been saying,
a
Tom.
lot of points.
This has trap game written all over it. I agree with Reed 100%. This roster should be good enough and is good enough to beat the Texans without Jamar Chase. Saying that, you take one game for granted when you're in last place in the division. I don't love our chances. I don't love it.
They went, 3-0 last year without Jamar Chase?
Yep.
Without Jamar Chase playing last
3-1.
year?
They lost the Browns game.
They lost the Browns game.
Okay,
but
so
that
my
was-
bad. So they lost the Browns game, came back and won 2 games. Jamar Chase is a top 3 receiver in the league. No one can deny that. Anytime that he's on the field, the team is infinitely better. But if he's banged up, I don't want him hurting any more than, especially with the Ravens and the Steelers game. I'm not sleeping on the Texans. I'm just bringing up the point that if there was any game that for the rest of the year that Jamar Chase could take a game off, it would be the Texans. So if he's banged up going into this week, all right, let's sit him, let's rest him. We can beat the Texans without Jamar Chase. We've shown that. And I'll beat the point till it's a dead horse. If you can't beat the Texans without Jamar Chase, then what are we doing as fans? What are we doing here in Cincinnati? Like and I know you can lose on any given Sunday in the NFL, but I want Jamar healthy for the end of the year.
The Chiefs lost to the Broncos.
That's true. We lost to the
But
Titans.
in fairness, that game was in Denver.
The Texans obliterated the Jaguars.
The Texans aren't out of the postseason. I mean, they're 4-4. They play in a bad division in the AFC South. Like, they're a good team. C.J. Stroud's the real deal. You watch the tape on him. He's the real deal. Like, he's going to be a good quarterback in this league. I don't want it to be twisted what I'm saying. And I know you can easily pluck and say that, Reed, you're saying that you want to start one of the best, you want to sit one of the best players because you think you should beat them without. That is what I'm saying. But I don't think you should be sleeping on the Texans. I just also want to rest one of our best players so that he's healthy for the divisional games.
Casey, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts are rest Jamar Chase. I don't want to lose him for any longer than we have to. I think Reed's right. It's gonna be a close game regardless of who's in and who's out. And I'm just looking at what happened for the Texans this year. That Ravens game to start early on in the season was actually a lot closer than it appears. I remember that one very vividly. Then they barely lose the Falcons. They barely lose the Panthers. They've been in a lot of games, and they've blown out some teams. They blew out the Steelers 30-6. They blew out the Jaguars 37-17. They scored 39 points on a Buccaneers defense, which is not great anymore, but it's still good.
Yep.
It's still decent.
Yep.
So for me, I'm not sleeping on the.
And I think the Bengals have only scored 30 points in a game, twice this year?
Well, both. Well, one of them being
Cardinals
the
and
Cardinals, and then the other being San
Yeah,
Francisco.
okay, so 2 games. They've scored 30.
Yeah.
And, I mean, the Texans are putting up 30, not on a regular basis, but against some pretty good teams, as you just mentioned. They can
Right.
score.
They can score. And, also in the same merit, when we lost Jamar Chase for those 4 games or whatever it was, we leaned heavily on our run game to kind of help support that. And that hasn't really been fully fledged out as of yet. So for me, you look at this Houston team, they're 10th in the league in stopping the run. Pretty darn good up front. They like to get after the quarterback. It's just like Elliott said, it's just the writing on the wall says trap game. I don't think the Bengals will treat them any less than what they are.
No.
I think they'll truly treat them as a competitor. But as a fan, you just cannot say, just rest Jamar Chase. This team's a cakewalk. That's just not it. There's more into this than really.
Sure, and we can circle around this topic all we want. When it comes down to it, what Brian Billick said, what we know is going to happen is they're going to sit Jamar Chase down and say, look, are you good to play or are you not? And Jamar Chase is going to sit right there and say, yeah, I'm good to play, or no, I'm not good to play. And that's who's going to make the decision. That's who's going to make the decision. Kyle Caskey brings up a good point, or says that Trenton Irwin will step directly in for Chase, and Cincinnati won't miss a step for a game or two. They are that good at the skill positions. Plus, they have yet to lean on Joe Mixon for an entire game yet. That's what Casey just brought up. Is when you're missing Jamar Chase, you can run the ball a little bit more. You can be a little more diverse with the offense. So,
Well, and look, the one thing, again, that I really like about Chase, I don't know him. I've met him. I don't know him. I really like his honesty in assessing the whole thing. Like you mentioned, He said the same thing with Burrow. Remember, last year, he was healthy enough to go, but he wanted one more week. And that made a huge difference. Now, in fairness, last year, some of the teams they played during that stretch when they leaned on the run game, the game Mixon had 5 or 6 touchdowns, ran for 190 yards or whatever it was, right? I mean, they were playing the Falcons, and they were playing the Saints, and they were playing some of these teams that, quite honestly, I mean, they're just not very good. I don't think either one of those teams this time last year would be as good as Houston is right now. Now, we'll never know the answer to that question. But you mentioned how Houston does against the run, and they've played some teams that like to run. Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, some others. They play teams that like to run the ball. It's a big decision. I don't think that they're going to let Chase make the decision. I really don't. I think Brian said it. More times than not, the player will walk in and say, I'm good to go. And then they'll look at the doctor and they'll ask those questions. Can he make it worse? Could him playing this week mean that if he does one thing, that it's really bad?
Yeah.
So I agree with Kyle. I agree with all you guys. I mean, everybody has a perfectly viable, logical. It's going to be interesting to see what happens this coming week. I tell you that, and Brian brought it up. I can't wait, and I have a bad feeling I'm going to be on an airplane flying back from Texas. What time is that Baltimore-Cleveland game this week? Is that a 1 o'clock game?
It is a 1 o'clock game.
It should be a 1 o'clock.
2 East Coast teams, yeah.
It is a 1 o'clock game.
Man, that
Should be a
is
4
going to
o'clock
be an interesting game to watch because I'm with him. And Elliot, you've already gone on record as saying you think the Brownies are winning 2 playoff games, which puts them in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, I do. I believe it. I think the Browns are damn good. I think if Deshaun Watson, again, is capable of playing 50% of what he was in Houston, he's a good quarterback. He's a very, very good quarterback. I think the Browns' defense is scary. I bet that's a low-scoring game. That's a smash-mouth football game. And it's arguably one of the biggest games of the season to date because the NL Central, my God. The AFC North, I'm still in baseball mode, Tom. I'm always in baseball mode.
Sorry to hear that.
The AFC North is such a hard division, and I do think one of those two teams will win the division when it's said and done.
Andrew Dunn accuses you of this being a shtick, picking the Brownies to win 2 playoff
It's not
games.
a shtick. It's not a shtick.
You really believe that?
I think they are capable of winning 2 playoff games.
I think when you said that, you didn't realize that they were going to get into the AFC Championship game with 2 playoff wins.
Nope. I don't think – nope. Not at all, Reed. I think that the Browns are capable of winning 2 playoff games. Part of being good is being lucky. They've been very lucky this season. They were lucky in Indianapolis. They were lucky throughout this year. So, listen, they were lucky it was raining in Cleveland week 1, so Joe Burrow couldn't throw more than 40 yards.
Give me a break.
That was
pretty lucky.
It was raining, Tom.
It's pretty lucky, Tom.
Oh, Lord.
It was wet.
Come on.
It was wet.
I think we win that game if it's dry.
Would I bet all my money that the Browns get to an AFC Championship game? No. But I do think it's possible.
Well, it's possible. They're a good team.
There's no way you believe watching that season opener. It rained for both teams the last time I checked.
Right.
When the Bengals had the ball, it didn't start pouring, and when the Brownies had it, because Deshaun Watson was stunk in that game too.
Well, yeah, Cleveland. When you're up in Cleveland, you're used to just terrible weather like that. Here
It was
in
home field
Cincinnati,
advantage.
down here in Cincinnati, close to Hamilton, where the sun always
Well,
shines.
they should have built the stadium in Hamilton.
Right,
They
yeah,
should've.
they would never have to worry about it, any bad weather whatsoever. They're used to just terrible weather. They're used to being muggy and just gross up there. Sometimes the lake's on fire.
Could you imagine some of the designs on the fake grass that the Lawnmower Man could do up there?
Oh, my
If
God,
you had
yeah.
the stadium up here.
It would be insane. I think the Bengals could use
It looked like
New
the Oregon
Miami's
basketball court.
field. Yeah. Yeah.
In all seriousness, though, this game this Sunday could be.
I couldn't help myself.
It could be a coming out party for the Cleveland Browns. I know that we in the AFC North recognize that they're very good. We see their defense and how good it can be. But if they could beat a Ravens team who I think is playing the best football in the National Football League right now, on the road, that's a coming out party.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Everett says someone buy Reed a Steelers jersey and Elliott a Browns jersey.
I hate that
Reed is. He's always said he's a Steelers fan. He grew up in Pittsburgh. He loves the black and yellow. So go ahead, Reed.
They're my least favorite sports team in the world. I hate the Steelers. My brother-in-law is a Steelers fan. That's why I don't like him a whole lot. So
You are frequently talking up Kenny Pickett.
That's right.
You do talk up Kenny Pickett.
He was a bottom 5 quarterback in the NFL.
Kenny Pickett, for the first 45 minutes of every football game, looks like he's never played this sport before. Then the final 15 minutes, he makes a couple throws, and you're just like, what the hell was that? And then they win the game. It doesn't make sense. The
right.
Steelers are an anomaly. Close. I was close.
I know we're doing picks tomorrow because Friday I'm not going to be here. I'm going to go visit my daughter for the weekend. I get to watch the University of Texas play football on Saturday. I'm looking forward to that.
TCU's going to win that game.
Their quarterback play, their defense. And they were supposed to be better talented team this year than they were last year. But that's, we talk about it all the time, man. I mean, that Big 12 is a different animal. It really is.
Yep.
I mean, every single week, man, there are no layups in that league.
None.
Yeah, it's not like
None. You go play Kansas and Kansas State and Oklahoma State.
And UC.
And
UCF.
Well, I don't know what happened.
That went out the window.
Brigham Young University.
Has Houston won a conference game yet?
They've won one.
They won one. I was getting ready to say, is this another clash of the Titans this weekend?
Yeah, they've won one. UCF has won one against us, and the Bearcats, unfortunately, have not won one yet.
Hey, got a chance. Got a chance.
Still got a
This
chance.
is it. I feel it, Tom.
At
I feel it.
Houston,
You are right
you're
about the
gonna
Big
pick them to
12.
win?
It's the best conference in football, no doubt about
That's what
it.
everyone says.
Better than the SEC?
Way better. Way better.
Big 12 and MAC.
More parity in there.
The MAC, MAC is second.
All right, we're going to get to that in a second. More news around the National Football League. The LA Rams signed veteran quarterback Carson Wentz. Remember him? There was a time he was one of the better guys around. They've signed him to back up the injured Matthew Stafford, according to ESPN. The team made the signing during their bye week, which, of course, give Wentz more time to learn the offense. Titans coach, former Buckeye star Mike Vrabel, announced yesterday that rookie Will Levis will be the team's starting quarterback for the remainder of this season. Levis has started the last 2 weeks, filling in for the injured veteran Ryan Tannehill. Interesting sign made by the Dallas Cowboys. They bring in wide receiver Martavius Bryant. Now, this cat has not played in the NFL since 2018 due to multiple violations of the league's substance abuse policies. Bryant came into the league with the Steelers, went to the Raiders. In 44 games, had 145 receptions for nearly 2,400 yards. Now 5 years have gone by, but the Cowboys are looking for somebody besides CeeDee Lamb to make some big plays. College football rankings. Round 2 came out last night. The top 4 remain the same. Ohio State number 1, followed by Georgia, Michigan, and Florida State. Washington's undefeated at number 5. This is where it gets interesting. We're going to talk about this a little bit today, okay? And they were talking about it last night. That show is actually a good show to watch. I don't really get wrapped up in a lot of those kinds of things, but I have to say, they've got a great crew, they being ESPN, where you got Reese Davis as a host, and then you got Herb Street and Galloway, a couple of Buckeyes, by the way. You got Booger McFarland, and you've got Greg McElroy. And McElroy was the one who brought it up last night. And people that say these rankings are not a big deal because it's too early, it's just not accurate. And he made this point, okay? Because where they are now has set pretty much a guideline or a baseline of where they will go moving forward. And here's the point that he made. We're talking about one-loss teams now. And mark it down. There's going to be a one-loss team that's in this college football playoff. There is every year. In fact, there's more than one most years. Okay? Oregon is ahead of both Texas and Alabama, despite the fact that the Ducks' best win this year was against Utah, and they're just okay. Their second best win, technically, is against Colorado. Okay? So Oregon is at 6. At 7, you have Texas. Texas has 5 wins this season against teams with winning records, including a win, the only loss Alabama has had at home in its last 54 games in Tuscaloosa. Then you have the Crimson Tide. Now, yes, they lost to Texas, but Alabama has wins against 3 teams in the top 20. Ole Miss, who's at number 10, Tennessee, who's at 15, and LSU, who lost last week to Alabama, drops to 20. So in other words, if they stay with where they are, now Oregon's going to have to face maybe Washington again, okay? In a Pac-12 championship game, they're going to have to face USC, but I mean, it's USC. So it's not a cakewalk the rest of the way, but I tell you, the way this shakes out, it's going to be fascinating. More drama, by the way, surrounding Michigan football today. Now, there's a source who used to work at a Big Ten school, okay, who said they have proof, and this person has sent it to the University of Michigan, that last year, Ohio State, Rutgers, and Purdue all shared Wolverine signs, okay, as they were getting ready to play Michigan. They shared their signs. Now, those signs were accumulated from, and even the person who's brought this up has admitted this much, has said it was accumulated from watching their games when you're playing them, which you're allowed to do, or trying to get it from television. In fact, one Big Ten coach who remained anonymous said this is completely commonplace all over college football, that it is perfectly legal, and that Michigan is doing nothing more than just trying to divert the attention away from its illegal in-person sign stealing scandal. I mean, this gets more fascinating by the day. All right, last night in Maction. Boys, can we say Maction?
Maction.
I'm not going to listen to Elliot because he badmouths Maction.
That's true. No, I don't.
Yes, you do. You badmouth the Mac.
I went to a Mac school.
Yeah, I know, but you badmouth the Mac.
Toledo's my alma mater.
We have tape.
There's no tape.
You don't badmouth the Mac. You're a Mac kind of guy.
I'm a Mac guy.
You are. You're a Mac guy. Ohio University goes to 7-3. With a win last night, come from behind win at Buffalo. Boy, did it look cold there. If you watched any of that on TV, I mean, it looked really cold. Bobcats are 1 game behind Miami for first place in the MAC East. Speaking of the Red Hawks, they play at home tonight.
We going?
Against Akron. In another night of?
Maction.
Boy, that was lame.
Tom, are we going?
That was really lame.
High nooners? To Yager Stadium up there in Oxford?
Not a chance.
That's our kind of game. Maction.
No, it's your kind of game. Miami.
There's going to be 10.
There's Maction and then there's Miami.
You think we can even get a seat? Think we can get a ticket to that game?
I doubt it.
I know.
It's going to be a beautiful night. It's going to be in the 50s, right? Just up the road from Hamilton.
It's going to be sold out up there in Oxford. We know that for sure.
It is going to be a big league atmosphere. I mean, forget Penn State whiteouts.
Correct.
Forget going to the shoe.
Correct.
Forget LSU for a night game. This is Miami of Ohio.
Listen,
you know what, though? I'm not going to say anything bad about them because I'm a big Chuck Martin guy.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of his. Yeah, he did. They ran OU in the ground. They ran them in the ground, and I can admit it. When my guys stink or make mistakes, I'm the first guy out there to beat them down. And Miami looked phenomenal against OU last week with their backup quarterback, and he's got to go the rest of the way because the Gabbard kid is out.
Yep, no doubt.
Which bowl game do you think Ohio's going to get in this year?
They'll get in
Lead Paint
like
Bowl
the Bahamas Bowl
or
some of that kind of bowl.
Some
I mean, they're already bowl eligible. They're 7-3.
Yeah.
They got an outside chance. They need help from other people for Miami to lose and get into the MAC Conference Championship game. Right now, if the season ended, Miami would play in the MAC Conference Championship game against the team that's the only one to beat them in the MAC, and that would be Toledo.
Alma mater.
That's my alma mater. I went there.
That's true.
We should go to the MAC championship game this year. You know where they play that, Tom?
Ford?
Yes, I do. Ford Field.
Ford Field.
Yes, inside.
It's a party in there.
It is. It's big time because those MAC schools can party now.
Oh, yeah, they can.
They can party. That's a rock solid. That's an every man's conference. Maybe not for a guy like Reed, but or really even Elliott, elitist.
I went there.
But Casey, for guys like you and me, the MAC, it's right up our alley.
What are you guys talking?
Every man's conference.
That's right.
You guys went
Doesn't change. They don't bring guys in and out. They're not having exodus to go over here and try to bring in a couple of stiffs from over there. It's remained the same. Strong, proud.
Listen, you guys that were in the Mid-American Conference, that's highfalutin. Casey was in the Horizon Conference. The real Everyman's Conference is the Heartland Collegiate Athletic Conference, the HCAC. That's where real men go, Tom. Guys like Woody Harrelson is an alum of the HCAC. Former Vice President Mike Pence was an HCAC guy. And Reed Mouse, Bluffton Beaver. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, Tom.
Did you just put in the chat that LSU would beat Ohio State by 10?
Yeah.
Did you write that?
Yeah, I was probably a little wrong there. It'd probably be closer to 15-20.
Okay.
Do you disagree?
Yeah, I just do disagree.
So you think it'd be even more?
I very much disagree.
You think it'd be even more?
No, I don't think that would happen. But what do you think of that one-loss thing? See, people say it's irrelevant. They say it's irrelevant. It's not irrelevant. Now, look, if all three of those teams finish with one loss, and this is what would be really fascinating, okay? That would mean, let's start with Oregon. That would mean that Oregon runs the table and avenges their only loss, theoretically, would beat Washington, okay, which would bump Washington out. Right? Okay. So you would have Oregon as the Pac-12 champion with one loss. If Texas runs the table, okay, they would have one loss, have a chance to avenge their only loss, which was against Oklahoma. No, is it Oklahoma, right? Yeah, they lost to Oklahoma. And I don't know if Oklahoma's going to make it, but maybe. But let's just say they played Oklahoma again and beat them in the Big 12 title game. So you'd have a Pac-12 champion in Oregon, one loss. You'd have a Big 12 champion in Texas, one loss. Let's say Alabama runs the table and beats Georgia in the SEC championship game. The conference that has dominated the college football landscape and the college football playoff since it started. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, not even in the same galaxy with everybody else.
Damn right, Tom.
Okay? Are you going to put Oregon in the play? Let's just, for the sake of argument, let's just assume for a second, okay? We know Ohio State or Michigan, one of them is going to lose a game because they play each other. And let's say, pick one. Say Ohio State wins, say Michigan loses. Okay. I still think, well, we'll get to that in a minute. But let's say you had unbeaten teams. So that would mean Georgia had a loss to Alabama. Alabama's the SEC champion based on the scenario. There's a lot of moving parts here, but just stay with me for a second. Let's assume Florida State wins out. They're undefeated. So the only undefeateds would then be Ohio State and Florida State. You'd have Georgia with a loss to Alabama. You'd have to put Alabama ahead of Georgia if they beat them and won the SEC title game, okay? You would have Oregon, one loss. Michigan, one loss. Texas, one loss. Alabama, SEC champion, one loss. You have to put Texas ahead of Alabama because they beat them.
Correct.
Okay, but are you telling me you're going to put, in theory, the way they have them ranked right now, and let's just say each of them stay at one loss. Pac-12 champ, Big 12 champ, SEC champ. Are you going to put Oregon ahead of Texas Are you going to put Oregon ahead of Alabama for potentially a spot in the college football play? The SEC champion?
Tom, no. I mean, well, if Alabama,
But aren't they boxed in by the way right now that they have it?
No, they are.
A little bit?
I don't understand how.
Go ahead.
I don't understand how they can have the rankings as they are. I mean, if you're looking at if you're setting the precedent of putting Ohio State 1 because of who they beat, that's fine. That's good and everything like that. But then if the same precedent is put to the one-loss teams, it doesn't make sense because Oregon doesn't have the same wins that Texas and Alabama do.
Right.
And that's what you're asking. That's what you're saying.
That's what I'm asking.
Is there is no world, there is no scenario in which the Alabama Crimson Tide run the table, beat Georgia in the SEC championship, and don't get in the college football playoff.
All right, hold on a minute now.
I know that's how they're setting it up, but that's not. There's no scenario, right?
Well, I mean, Jolly brings up a great point. You can say it doesn't matter now, and the committee has proven through the years that you can justify whatever you want to justify moving forward. But I mean, if put yourself in Oregon's place here for a second. Most people have felt that this year, they did early in the year, I'm not so sure anymore, because the Oregon States and the Washington States and SC and Utah, they're all just okay now. They were getting a lot of pub early. But can you imagine being in Oregon shoes and all of a sudden, you lose an incredibly exciting game against Washington, your big rival, right? Your only loss. And then you beat Washington in the Pac-12 championship game, and you're left out?
Tom, I don't know. I don't know. This is such a weird situation. I don't know what they're gonna do. Some teams got to start falling off, and if it comes down to the SEC champion's always gonna get in. How could an SEC champion not get in, Tom?
I'm with you all the way on that.
How could an SEC champion?
Well, I mean, especially if you look at what would Alabama's resume be at that point. Alabama would have beaten, their only loss would be to Texas. Okay? They will have beaten Ole Miss, who right now is ranked 10th. And Ole Miss, by the way, plays Georgia this weekend. Another huge game. Huge game in college football this weekend. Unbelievable playoff implications. So you've got that game. So they would have a win, Alabama would, over Ole Miss. Go on the road and beat number 17 Tennessee. Win over LSU, and win over, by the time we get there, right now they're number 2, win over Georgia. Right. Here were the rankings, by the way, and here we go. Justin's always stirring it up, Ohio State stuff. It says Kyle McCord will cost Ohio State the national championship. You know what? You might be right. You might be right.
If Ohio State were to lose to Michigan, then what would happen?
Yeah, like let's do this hypothetical to where both Ohio State and Michigan go into the final week or the final game, and then they're undefeated. Whoever wins goes on and wins the SEC or the Big Ten champion. So we're looking at a one-loss Ohio State or Michigan team, and the other team's the Big Ten champion. Georgia goes to the SEC champion, loses to Alabama. And then meanwhile, Florida State and Washington are both undefeated going into and win their championship. What does that look like? Because now you're looking at a one-loss Ohio State or Michigan team. Whoever wins the Big Ten championship is in. They're undefeated. I can't imagine Georgia.
Well, they don't have to be undefeated. I mean, that's when, if you really want to get crazy about this stuff,
right.
I mean really crazy, right? Way out there.
You want to get crazy.
What if Michigan loses this weekend at Penn State? And then Michigan turns around and beats Ohio State.
And then wins the Big
because
10.
of the tiebreaker and the way that the Big Ten works, the team that has gone the longest without playing in a Big Ten title game goes to the title game.
Right.
So you would have Ohio State and Michigan, who have been in the top 3-4 all year long, right? You would have both of them with one loss and neither one playing in their conference championship game. But go ahead to what you're doing. I know what you're saying.
So let's make a hypothetical for the craziest amount of the most amount of chaos that we can possibly create. Ohio State has the best resume in college football right now, but they lose to Michigan in the final week, and then Michigan goes on and wins the Big Ten championship game. So we're looking at a 13-0 Big Ten champion Michigan team We're looking at an 11-1 Ohio State team that has been number one for the past few weeks and would be number one up until that final week.
Yep.
Georgia goes 12-0, loses in the SEC championship game to Alabama. So we're looking at a 12-1 Georgia team who has been in the top 4, top 3, top 2 all season long. And we're looking at a 12-1 Alabama team that is the SEC champions. Meanwhile, we also have a 13-0 Florida State team, a 13-0 Washington team, to where we have 6 teams that all have very, very legitimate cases to get into the college football playoff. What does that look like?
No doubt about it.
Because at some point you're going to have to, you might have to kick out one of these Pac-12 13-0 undefeated Washington teams.
Well, if you're undefeated, you're in.
Yeah, I agree. But if you're Georgia and you lose to Alabama because of all the strength of schedule stuff, assuming that whole scenario, Michigan's undefeated, blah, blah,
Right.
blah, I think Georgia's the one that gets bounced.
Well,
So
Georgia
gets
and
in-
Michigan would get bounced because of their strength
schedule.
of schedule. They would get bounced.
A one-loss Georgia.
Yeah,
Michigan.
because I think that Georgia's strength of schedule is like 100th, Michigan's like 112th. You know, Georgia's win over Missouri last week was their first win against a top 25 team. Now, and the same thing for Michigan. I mean, the teams that they played out of conference, it's an embarrassment, and for 2 or 3 years now. And you know what? You can't argue with them for doing it. The last 2 years, they played in the college football playoff.
Yeah.
And they've won the big one against Ohio State when they've had to win the big one. They beat them and beat them bad. So you're right, though. This thing is unbelievable where it could end up.
Well, so in my hypothetical that I proposed, you said that Michigan would get, I mean, if they win the Big Ten championship and go 13-0, they'd be in.
Who?
Michigan.
Of course they would.
They'd go
Big
in.
Ten champion undefeated's going in.
Okay. And in my scenario, I have both Washington and Florida State going 13-0, winning their championship. So you'd say they were in.
Without a doubt.
So now you're looking at the 4th spot being between an 11-1 Ohio State team, a 12-1 Georgia team that lost in the SEC champion, and a 12-1 Alabama team that won the SEC championship.
And
Texas,
you left out a
Texas.
Texas team that would have one loss as a Big
I
12
didn't even
champion,
throw into Texas being a
which
Big
beat Alabama.
and then
so,
Texas would have to be ahead of Alabama.
Yeah, Texas is going to go ahead of Alabama.
So I think, in all seriousness, if that all plays out the way that I just said it, and I didn't even throw Texas into it, I think we're legitimately looking at the committee leaving out an undefeated Power 5 champion.
No way. No chance.
I would rather see
No
I would rather
chance.
see a 12-1 Georgia team in there than a 13-0 Washington or a 13-0 Florida State team. I'd rather see an 11-1 Ohio State team in there over a 13-0 Washington team or a 13-0 Florida State team.
Ain't happening, though. I hear what you're saying. And I think the TV ratings would certainly reflect that, because every time you put, certainly Ohio State more so than any other team in college football, you put them onto national television and the numbers blow up. But they're going to have to beat Michigan this year.
Yeah,
they're going to have to beat them.
I hate to bring up sour topic here, but UC went undefeated, and they put them in there because
That's
they
right.
went undefeated.
That's
But that
right.
wasn't
There's
the
just no
same.
way. There's just no way that they're not.
That
That's
wasn't
right.
the same
That was-
scenario as I mean, we're looking at, in that scenario, we're looking at 7 teams that in any other year the college football playoff would get in. But because that all 7 of these teams are going up against each other, I would say the college football playoff gets together and just said, all right, we're going to play an 8-team team this year. We've got to, because I know they can't do that, but I wish they could.
I wish they could. It starts next year, right? The 12 team?
Yes, the
Yeah.
12.
The UC thing, they would not have gotten in had Oklahoma State won their final game. They lost at the
Right.
buzzer. I forget who they played. Maybe Baylor. He dove at the end zone, was short, or whatever that was. So if Oklahoma State wins their last game of the year, UC's out as an undefeated team. Everybody wanted TCU out last year. So
As a one-loss team.
as a one-loss
and
team.
a non-conference champion.
So it'll be interesting.
It'd be so awesome if this hypothetical that I threw out there happens and we get a true case study into what the college football playoff values more than anything. And then it's all for naught because it goes
Yeah.
to 12 teams. So, like, we finally figure out what they truly desire in the college football playoff. Kirk Herbstreit and all those guys eating Chick-fil-A and drinking Dr. Pepper.
I make that joke. Is there a particular reason they have Notre Dame as number 20 with 3 losses?
Same reason they have LSU at 19 with 3 losses.
LSU's played people, though. I mean, Notre Dame's played Ohio State and I guess Louisville.
USC.
USC.
USC's not
Ohio
in it.
State.
Yeah, I mean, the 2 of their three losses are to teams that are in the top 11.
That's fair. I don't
And
know.
even some of their other games weren't against a bunch of patsies. I mean, Duke's not a patsy.
Yeah, they beat Duke.
I mean, they're right where they belong.
They have 2 ranked
Jolly
wins.
Jolly, always our guy. He points it out, says, just history here, fellas. November chaos always happens. This hypothetical will never happen.
That's
We're
fair.
about to find out. And that
that's
one
fair.
guy, 15, keeps pounding the drum about this Purdue, Rutgers, Ohio State thing. Now, look, that one guy, 15, look, I have said on this show, once I've said it 50 times in the last 2 weeks since this whole Michigan story broke. If Ohio State or my alma mater, Ohio University, or anybody else out there, if they are breaking the rules, I will call them out and say, throw the book at them. If you've read about this story, which I'm sure you have, there is nothing that is alleged in this whole thing about anybody, Rutgers, Ohio State, or Purdue, breaking any NCAA rules. Each team got their own signs watching Michigan play while they were playing against them or got them off television. Even the person who has given this information to Michigan, and Michigan has now turned it over to the Big Ten. Everybody involved knows this is not illegal. Slightly unethical? Perhaps. Perhaps. You think it's unethical? I'm curious what you guys think. If you're playing an opponent, okay, but let me just finish this part, and then we'll get to this. That one guy, 15, there's nothing illegal here. This is nothing more than a Michigan throwing a total smoke screen to divert from what's going on here. That's all this is. But unethical? What do you guys think?
Sign stealing in sports happens. That's why this Michigan thing's so weird, because they went into a psychotic way to do it.
Yeah.
You can sign steal. You just can't have your guy dress up like a 1920s detective, stand on an opponent's sideline and do it that way with a camera in his glasses. You can't be a weirdo about it. But at the end of the day, everybody sign steals. Everybody, quote unquote, cheats. They bend the rules. I'll use that instead of cheat. They bend the rules to their advantage. So do I think it's immoral? Yeah, a little bit, but everybody does it. So at what's the cost?
Listen, I know I have the reputation of being the Ohio State hater, and it's for good reason. I throw a lot of shade their way. But when I look at what's going on right now and all this stuff, I think what what Michigan is doing right. They broke the rules to an extent that no one had seen. It's similar to what's going on with what happened with the Astros, and they just took things to another level. But when I hear all these Ohio State fans beat the drum and beat the drum and beat the drum about Michigan and what they're doing and all these things, about a rule that Ohio State fans had no freaking clue existed before this story came out. It's not some well-established rule. It's a rule that they found out in the news.
I'm going to disagree with you on that. I think everybody who follows college football knows, and it's been a rule since 1994, that you are not allowed to go scout teams in person. Rule. Well, I mean, I did, but I'm a little, look, I follow it close. But go ahead, please make it.
I don't think anybody knew that rule to the T. Yeah, when it comes
obviously
out,
Michigan didn't know it.
When it comes out, they're like, oh yeah, maybe you shouldn't be able to do that. But no one was like, I think these teams are getting signs and all this stuff. And it truly feels like to me, and you guys listen, you can call me the Ohio State hater and everything like that. It feels like Ohio State is grasping at something to get Michigan out of their way easier than just beating them straight up.
Wait a minute now. What does Ohio State have anything to do with this Michigan thing?
The Ohio State fans are just beating the drum. They should be punished. They should do all this stuff.
Okay, and what are the Michigan fans doing at all this? I mean, look, if you want to be
winning
appalled by the
Tom.
Ohio State fans, hey, have you read some of the chat stuff on all these different articles from some of the Michigan fans? I mean, come on. They were caught red-handed breaking rules. And this Ohio State thing, I'm not saying it's certainly on a slippery slope. I will say that without a doubt. But when people say this stuff that was going on at Michigan, everybody does it, that's total BS. Total BS. Or we would know about it, especially now. Because when a story like this breaks about anything in life, in society, all of a sudden, here they come, the cockroaches out of the woodworks to start saying, well, I know this guy did this, and I got proof that that guy did that, and I know that this school did that, and I know that that team did that. There would be stories all over the place, coast to coast. Now, maybe there are teams doing it, and they just haven't been caught. That's a possibility.
Which is likely.
Do you think that Michigan should get to play in the Big Ten championship game this year?
Well, here,
because I can tell you one way to keep them out of it: beat them.
Well, there's no question about that. But the question is going to come down to, and they talked about this on the college football playoff show again last night, is the point was made, and we've said this on the show before, so they're imitating our show. I mean, we know that they watch this show. But that you would be punishing the kids who have a shelf life of 4 or 5 years, right? And you would be keeping them out of a Big Ten championship game or potentially a college football playoff game. The kids who only have 5 years to play 4. You can suspend Jim Harbaugh if you're Tony Petitti. He has that right under the sportsmanship clause inside the Big Ten bylaws. If you suspend Jim Harbaugh, when do you suspend him? There are some people who think this story's coming down today because they're running out of time. The clock is ticking. If the conference wants Jim Harbaugh and the world wants Jim Harbaugh on the sideline against Ohio State for the last game of the year, if you're going to suspend him 2 games, you got to suspend him today. He would have to miss this weekend's game against Penn State and then next weekend's game, whoever they're playing. Because the weekend after that, Ohio State comes to Ann Arbor. So are you punishing the kids by suspending their coach? Okay, there's that whole thing. Right. So, but there are a lot of people that think that this Michigan thing is coming down today from the Big Ten Conference. And that is certainly something worth keeping an eye on. Now, we got lots to get to today. We have Casey's famous or infamous, depending on how you look at it, stink list today. Mm-hmm. We have our Power 5, which for some of us, we take it seriously. Others in this room, it's turned into a laughingstock.
Yeah, we've been saying that about your Power 5 for a while. Ours is very serious.
I don't put Ohio State number 1, though. I haven't. I've always said all along, until Georgia loses, they're number 1. So I've given you already the headlines. But one thing we've not done in a long, long time, the Ham and Eggers. Mr. President, please take it away.
It's that time of the show, the Ham and Eggers. These guys are great, trust me, I would know. I introduce all the best segments.
Sling it over. You know, I want to tie a bow around this before we get to Casey reading the ads. And I just want to say one thing, and I want to clarify that. I think that if Michigan loses 2 games, they lose to Penn State, if Ohio State beats Michigan or Ohio State fans don't give a rat's ass what the final verdict is on this whole Michigan cheating scandal is. They won't, because it'll all be for naught. It just seems like those who are clamoring for Michigan to get some punishment, it's coming from a place of you lost 2 games in a row. Because if you beat Michigan this year, if you were still on this 10-game win streak against Michigan, you wouldn't be worried about it. You wouldn't be worried about it whatsoever because you would just say, well, what's it matter when it comes down to Thanksgiving weekend? We'll beat them by 40 again, and we won't be talking about it anymore.
It seems like you're a big Michigan fan. That's what it seems to me. It seems like you're defending Michigan just like you defend the Steelers.
Kenny Pickett, Patrick Mahomes.
It's crazy. By the way, we have a super chat from that one guy. Didn't beat any drum. I worked throughout the day and have been in and out. Just asked a question if it had been brought up. That one guy, that's fair. That's fair. And by the way, I just said it in the chat. Listen, as of right now, the NCAA has said Michigan has done nothing wrong. That's what you're going off. So if you're going to suspend people for doing nothing wrong, and I agree with everybody in the chat pretty much that they did something wrong. I mean, one guy, it's unlikely that one lone wolf went out, bought his own tickets, stood on the sideline like a weirdo, like a 1920s detective with his glasses and his camera and his glasses. I agree. Michigan was probably responsible, but there is no definitive proof, and that's what this is. So if you're going to suspend people without proof, I don't know where that stops. So that's my. And Mr. Mo just says a super chat. People are saying, what about the kids? What about the kids at other schools who had opportunities that
that team up north?
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Is that a real abbreviation?
They are so scared of Michigan they won't even say their name.
That team up north took away because of what they did. I don't know about that. I think that's an extreme. But
do you think I could be a better troll against Ohio State fans than I am against Reds fans? Because
no,
I think I could. You don't think I could?
No, Reds. No.
There's a little more vitriol there.
Yeah, but you're not a college football guy.
That's right. That is true.
So if you're a Cubs guy, so it's more genuine when you troll the Reds fans.
Yep. All right, Casey, let's do those ad reads real quick.
Yeah, the Bengals report, which we haven't done much with the Bengals report, is brought to you by Encore Technologies. Encore Technologies provides IT solutions for a data-centered world with a suite of services from mobile computing to desktop to data center, supporting both centralized and work-from-home computing modules to improve efficiency and
productivity.
Visit encore.tech. The path to innovation begins here, and I've got this Pawnee water right here, made right in Hamilton, Ohio. Uses natural limestone filtration, unlike the artificial processing that other brands use. The result is a healthy alkaline water. Some say the best tasting water in the world. You can visit Pawnee Water at PAHHNIwater.com to see where you can buy this great tasting water. And that is the ad read.
Hey, give me a breaking news sound, Elliot. Breaking news, Casey, for your alma mater. Northern Kentucky University is expanding its athletics program for the first time in 25 years.
What does that mean?
6 new programs will be added to NKU, including men's volleyball, men's and women's swimming, men's and women triathlon, and women's stunt. Whatever that is.
Excuse me? What was the last one?
Women's stunt. Is that like stunt cheerleading?
Women's what?
Stunt. Is that like stunt cheerleading? Someone tell me what women's stunt is.
That's wild. Yeah, I have no idea what women's stunt is.
I was just waiting for women's stunt to come up. I could care less about NKU football. Like, we kidding? Horizon League football. Jeez.
Do
would have thought that would be.
Tell you what, though, that athletic director, she's done a phenomenal job over there at NKU. She's on her game.
She is.
She is on her game.
Congrats to NKU for those new programs.
But I do want to find out what women's stunts.
It's got to be like stunt
or stunts plural. What is it?
It was according to the tweet I saw. It just said women's stunt. That's got to be like stunt cheerleading, right?
Molly says it's cheerleading.
It's got to be cheerleading. That's
Molly says it's cheerleading.
That's when you do like cheer competitions and stuff like that.
It would be cool. It would be cooler if it was just stunts, like parkour. They'd walk around campus and they'd do tricks
There's lots of places to do parkour at NKU.
A lot of concrete.
A lot of
concrete.
Lawnmower man would love that campus.
That one guy said, yes, that is exactly what it is. So yeah, I was right. It's cheerleading. It's stunt cheerleading. Bring it on. Bring it on 2. Bring it on 3. Bring it on 4. All right, Tom.
Stunt, the sport, is one of the fastest growing female sports. Let's see here. Let me find this real quick. In the country.
I've heard about it.
Apparently it's going on in high school.
It's stunt cheerleading.
An exciting head-to-head game between 2 teams who execute skills-based routines in various categories.
Yeah. Okay,
Partner
so
stunts, jumps and tumbling, pyramids and tosses, and team. Yes, it looks like basically a highly advanced version of cheerleading.
Did your daughter ever do competitive cheer?
No.
My sister did it, and listen, if I'm not a parent yet, I plan on being a parent at some point. I will steer my kids clear, unless they really push me. I'm a pushover. I will steer my kids clear of any of the events where it's like an all-day meet. Cheerleading, we're talking wrestling, we're talking swimming, something that you've got to be at a gymnasium for 8+ hours, and then your kid competes for about 2 minutes. That's cheerleading, that's swimming, that's wrestling.
Swimming's so much worse because it's in the heat, you're in the humidity of that pool. Right. Oh, it's terrible. It's just terrible.
I'd much rather be at a ball field for 8 hours and my kid at least plays like 3 games, right?
Yeah.
I can do soccer where you're playing 3 games in a day, but at least it's action. When you're at a convention center for competitive cheer for 8 hours and then your daughter rolls on up there, and listen, it's a great thing. Girls love it. My sister loved it. But I just won't be there for 8 hours. I'm not going to be there for 8 hours for a 2
when
minute
you have
routine.
kids, you'll be there for 8 hours. Trust me when I tell you. You can say whatever you want to say, but when that day comes, and all of you out there who have kids know exactly what I'm saying. This isn't even a debatable topic. Whatever it is that they are into that keeps them out of trouble, whether it's swimming, whether it's stunts, whether it's competitive cheering, whether it's track meets that last forever and a day.
Track meets are another one. Gosh.
Listen, you're going to be there.
Yeah, I will.
You're
right. I don't want to be, but I'll be there.
You'll be there, and you'll want to be there.
I saved my dad the time. I had the last. I ran track for a couple years, and I had one event at the very beginning, one event at the very end, every single time.
Well, that's good for a parent, though. Because in that way, if you're, say, at your local high school,
drop them off and
you can come in, watch your first event. I mean, that's
fair.
That's actually a better deal. And then if you want to leave for a while, you run a couple of errands, you got to go to the dry cleaner, you got to go to the grocery store, you got to do whatever you got to do, and then you get back in time to catch your act at the end. That's big league operation there.
Yeah, I mean, I just told him not to bother. I just told him not to bother.
They only put the stars in at the beginning and at the end. So that must have been where you were. One of the stars.
I don't know about that, Tom. I don't know about that.
I can see it, Casey. I can see it. You got the look.
The look?
Yeah.
My mom told me if I participated in bowling, she wouldn't come to the matches.
See,
what's wrong
bowling's
with
fine.
bowling?
Bowling's
I don't.
fine.
Well, that's just what I was told. My mom's like, yeah, if you do bowling, I'm not coming. And that was
What
that
is
hurt my
wrong
feelings.
with bowling?
I don't know. It's my mom. I'm
And
telling
that
you,
is a big West Side deal, man.
it is.
Oh,
It is.
I mean, Hoinky Lanes over there and everything. They got it going on. They had forever Irv Hoinky. I mean, I used to do. Hey, listen. You're talking about one of the great broadcasters of bowling of all time.
How many matches?
I did for 3 years. In the winter months. In the winter months. The old Hudapole king of TV bowling. We would get up after doing the sports on a Saturday night, the night before on Channel 5, hit the streets in Mount Adams till about 3A, basically sleep in the clothes I had on from the night before, wake up at 5:30A, go to whatever bowling lane that where we were having it that week, from the west side to the north side to the east side, every point in between. Dead of winter, 5:30A. Started taping at 6:30A. And you would be there on a Sunday morning at 6:30A, and you would have these competitors, and you would have probably 150 people that were there, and they were drinking beer.
I love that.
It was a big league operation. And you are, see,
It's not me, it's my
family
mom.
again. An elitist family again.
It's interesting. If you look at local,
look down your nose at that.
You look at local high schools, like we'll take the GMC Greater Miami Conference, which is all the big public schools in the area. You look at who wins in golf. It's Sycamore, Mason, Lakota East, those schools. Who wins in swimming? Those same schools that I just mentioned. Sycamore, Mason, Lakota East. You look at who,
St. X wins in all this.
well, I'm
swimming.
saying in the GMC.
Oh, okay,
in the
all right.
GMC.
All right.
So then you look at another tennis, another highfalutin sport. Sycamore, Mason, Lakota East, Lakota West. You look at bowling. Who wins in bowling in the GMC? Hamilton, Middletown, Coleraine, Oak Hills. It's just so funny the difference about that. Hamilton state champions 2 years ago.
I was really good at Wii bowling. You ever have a Wii, Tom? The Wii?
Oh, yeah.
Video game thing?
No. I'm too old for that.
No, you're not.
My kids have had it.
You were in the prime of your life when the Wii was out. It was early 2000s. 2005?
2005, I was 42 years old.
The prime of your life.
Tom.
No.
That's
Prime of
Aaron
life
Rodgers.
is right now.
Right now.
We need a chatterbox bowling tournament, says Jolly Jolly. I agree with him. I agree. Now, there's a sport, Elliot, although I have to say, before we get on to all of our rankings and so forth, I must bring this up. So yesterday after the show was over, like the big movie premiere, right, we had the pummeling at Potter's Field. 35 minutes, edited to a golf match, 9-hole golf match of Elliott against Sean Spurlock. Now, I had no idea what this thing was going to look like, I got to tell you. So I had to meet a guy who was doing some work in our house. So I was able to stick around here for about the first 20 minutes of the show. And then I had to leave. And I was bummed I had to leave. If any of you watch it, you'll know what I mean. It's actually great content. It's funny. It's competitive. It was a really good show. And so last night, I go back home to watch the last 15 minutes. And I got to tell you, did you edit that?
Yeah, I edited. I put it all together, and Casey helped me with some of the graphics stuff there. And yeah, so Casey and I did it all. It was a good time though.
That was a big time show.
And
you were doing all you could to spit the bit at the end. You went in the last 2 holes with a 4 or 5 shot lead. I'm not going to give away what happened here.
He was eating a sandwich.
I was eating a sandwich in his face.
You were. You were marking your ball with a half-eaten PB&J.
Yeah, I did. I thought it was funny. Listen, and by the way, Tom, I don't know if you know this. Tomorrow after the show, we're going out for round 2. The match round 2 will be filmed tomorrow.
Really?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
What is the venue? Potter National again?
No, we will be going to my home course, Houston Woods.
Oh, that's a big league place.
That is a big league place.
It's a tough track. That's a tough track.
It is. I'm going to ask.
Houston Woods in Oxford?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Yeah.
That's
a nice place.
I love Houston. I love it. I'm going to ask them. I'm going to ask them to play the back 9 because on the back 9, if you've played Houston Woods, they have a hole where it's 200 over water. I would love to see me and Sean try to fight that. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it.
Houston Woods, tough track.
That is a beautiful area. Man, is that nice up there. They still got that Houston Woods lodge up there.
Yeah, they just renovated it.
Yeah.
Just renovated it.
That's really, really nice. Really nice. All right. Do we want to begin with Power 5 or the Casey McAllister stink list? Where would we like to begin?
Let's do Power 5.
All right, let's go. Who's starting? Reed?
Reed, yeah.
Let me lead off.
Yeah,
let me
Reed,
lead off.
got it.
I got the speed. I put the ball in play. Let me lead off. Let me be the leadoff hitter. We'll go with my NFL.
Okay.
Listen, Tom, you might notice a trend there at the NFL, and there's a new team up at the top. There's 4 AFC teams in the top 5, and that is simply because the AFC is much better than the NFC.
Yes.
Every division in the AFC has a 500 or better record when they're not playing in their division. 3 out of the 4 in the NFC have a losing record. So I'm looking at the Ravens. I truly don't think anybody's playing better football than them at this very moment. They're blowing out good teams. The Seahawks are a good team, and they just took them to the woodshed. You might say, listen, Reed, I know the Kansas City Chiefs got a win over the Dolphins, but they only scored 21 points. Their offense only scored 14. The Chiefs played maybe their best half of the season in that first half against the Dolphins. They looked very, very good. That first drive looked like the Chiefs' offense of old. Now, there are some problems there. There are some problems with their offense going forward. I imagine someone got me in the chat.
Keep going.
Keep going.
The Jaguars, they started out 1-2. They're on a 5-game win streak. No one has looked better than the Bengals over the past 2 weeks, beating the Bills, beating the 49ers in dominating fashion. I got to have the Eagles up there. They're just a solid team. Jalen Hurts is one of the best in the league. Tom, here's a stat for you. 2 teams in the NFL have 3 wins against 5-win teams. Do you know who they are?
Eagles?
Nope.
Really?
Cincinnati Bengals, Baltimore Ravens.
Wow. How about that?
How about that?
It's a big league stat.
It is a big league stat.
All right, that was my top 5.
My top 5. So the NFL, again, I'm very serious with the NFL in college rankings, so here we
go.
Number 1,
Here
Eagles.
we go.
You can't disagree with the Eagles. They're 8-1. It's the best team. It's the best team in the NFL without question. Number 2, we have the Chiefs. Again, Reed said it. Patty Mahomes, still the GOAT. They still got Kelsey. They're still all right. The defense has been very, very good this year. Patrick Mahomes has said that it's the best defense he's ever had in Kansas City. They're fine. They're still going to go to an AFC Championship game. The number 3 spot goes to the Ravens. Ravens should maybe be above the Chiefs in my rankings, but right now they're number 3. I don't think that's bad. I think the Ravens are a little bit fraudulent when it comes to Lamar having to throw to scrubs. Again, I know Patrick Mahomes doesn't have a ton of guys either, but, I mean, Lamar's guys have openly dropped passes all season long. Jaguars at 4.
They dropped passes in one game.
That one game, and he never forgets it. You guys like an elephant.
It's the one game.
Never forgets
They
anything.
had 9 dropped passes in that game.
Their wide receivers
9.
have been good every other game. They've been fine.
They have not been good.
Super Bowl winning
They have not
coach
been
Brian
good.
Billick said that
they've
the Ravens have a good wide receiving core today on the show.
They have accumulated like 200 yards. Like their number one receiver is names. I'm
Well,
gonna
it's
forget
because they
names
run
the
for
whole show.
300.
Zay Flowers. How many yards does he have?
I'll pull it up. You finish through
All
your
right.
top 5.
Number 4, Jaguars. They have a cake schedule. They play in that joke of a division. And number 5, we have the Falcons. If Desmond Ridder is given a second chance, I think they could really do something special over there in the NFC South.
You know what's crazy is when I was doing the rankings.
Yeah.
They almost have a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense.
That is crazy.
In yards. And I know that doesn't translate to points, but yardage-wise, that's pretty nuts.
Baltimore Ravens have 2 guys that are near 500 yards receiving. Mark Andrews has 477. Zay Flowers has 472. Nelson Aguilar and Odell Beckham have 220 yards.
That's not good.
I mean, they've 470 and 440. Those are top 20 in the league, right?
I suppose.
Well, I mean, that's pretty good.
There's
2-on-1 team.
right. Yeah, I don't know. It's
Pretty good. By the way, many are saying that both of you guys, you and Sean, are in for the nightmare of nightmares out at Houston Woods.
It's my home course. These guys don't know, Tom. I play Houston Woods well. I love Houston Woods. I have gotten it over. I've played Houston Woods probably 10 times in my life. I have gotten it over the water with my 5-iron, my trusty 5-iron. I've gotten over it pretty much every single time except for a couple. I've had a couple shanks. It gets in my head. Other than that, I love it. The hole right before it, I kill that hole every time too. I'm trying to remember throughout the course. Hole 18, that's a par 3 over water again. Love it. Easy hole there. I'm going to beat Sean again. I'm going to put him to bed. We're going to end this match thing, and then I'm on to Reed.
Ooh, okay.
All right, Tom, you're
All right,
next.
my top 5, I am going with the Eagles. I mean, they've lost once, period, end, and those numbers don't lie, 3-13. Now, the next 2 teams, their numbers, 1 more loss, yes, but I got the Ravens, too. And I got to tell you, the Chiefs, who I've always had in the top 2, they are starting to drop. Not just a third, but yes, they keep winning. I get it. But there is something wrong with that offense. Their defense, you see, number 4 overall, they look great. The Bengalis are red hot. They are creeping up quickly. And then this weekend, we're going to find out about the 49ers. Because if I'm not mistaken, the 49ers play the Jacksonville Jaguars this weekend in Jacksonville. Losers of 3 in a row, the formerly high-flying 49ers.
49ers have lost 3 in a row. Jacksonville Jaguars are 12-3 over their last 15 games. So after starting 3-7 last year, they are 12-3.
Jaguars. Yeah,
I noticed that you didn't have them in your top 5, Tom.
I don't.
They've won 5 in a row.
I understand. I'm just not buying them. Look, it's not to say that they can't get there and earn their way there. I just think right now, and basically it's a play off who I think is going to win this weekend. Okay. And I think the Niners are not going to lose 4 in a row.
Okay. What would that say if the Niners do lose 4 in a row?
Then they've got some major issues.
Because just 4 weeks ago, we were talking about this team like, go ahead and pencil them in the NFC Championship game. This is the best team in the league, bar none. One of the best rosters that we've seen put together ever. And here they are playing one of the best teams in the NFL to potentially lose their 4th straight game.
Is Deebo Samuel back this week? Do we know the answer to that question?
I do not know. Their left tackle is not back.
Trent Williams. That's a big blow.
Trent Williams is not back. And I think that over the past few years, they're like 3. He's missed some games. They're like 3-7 or something like that when he doesn't play.
It's not good.
It's not a good record.
That is definitely not a good record. They've got Deebo still on that injured list, right? Or not IR, but he did practice yesterday.
Okay.
So he returned to practice. Trent Williams is still sidelined. Chase Young is good to go. He got nicked up a little bit last week, his first game as a Niner. All right, Casey, here we go. For those of you that don't know, We have our stink list.
College.
Are we doing college?
We're doing college.
Oh, I'm sorry. Reed, lead us off once again.
Listen, when it comes to college, there's some things that are just higher than you. When it comes to being a man, there are some things that are higher than you, right? The laws of man given down from God. I give my power rankings to the college football playoff because they're just above me. So if it's good enough for the college football playoff, that's who I trust. So they've got Ohio State as number 1. Yeah, they're the best team in the country. They got Georgia at number 2, second best team in the country. Going on down. I'm just a humble guy from Hamilton, Ohio. So I just give my duties for the top 5 teams in college football to the college football playoff. Kirk Herbstreit and those guys eating Chick-fil-A and drinking Dr. Pepper in their little room.
They're not even in that room. You guys, that is a tired shtick. That room is down in Grapevine, Texas.
Yeah.
And when they did that show last night,
Yeah.
Boo Corrigan, who's the head of the college football playoff committee this year, he's down there, and they took a shot of all the guys kind of hanging out. The only AD who wasn't there of the 14 guys was an AD from Michigan, Wade Manuel, because he's dealing with all the stuff going on back there right now. So they're in Grapevine, Texas. Herbie was right here in Cincinnati where he lives, working out of his home office, and the rest of the guys were in Connecticut. So Herbie is not down there eating
Chick-fil-A.
He might be eating Chick-fil-A,
Drinking
but
Dr.
he is
Pepper?
not eating Chick-fil-A and drinking Dr. Pepper and making decisions in Grapevine, Texas.
I'm just saying. It's what I see. It's what I see. Elliot, your top 5.
Top 5, college. Everybody knows I love college sports. Here we go.
Yes.
At number 1, we have Georgia. Georgia is elite. Georgia has never lost a game ever. Number 2, we have Florida State. Honestly, I can't tell you much about them. I know they're undefeated, and that's all I care about. They're number 2. They're damn good. And is their schedule easy going forward? I'm pretty sure it is, right? I mean, the ACC is a joke. Michigan, as of right now,
wait a minute now. I mean, I tell you, it's one of the more interesting games that has a chance to happen is Florida State against Louisville.
Okay.
Louisville's pretty damn good.
Sat's coaching 2 teams, right? Coach Sat?
Coach Sat is coaching 2 teams. One of the teams is doing real good. Sat's almost got a top 10 team over there. And he has a top 10 Heisman winner, Heisman competitor in Emory Jones. Number 3, we have Michigan, the cheaters. Listen, if they're going to keep cheating, they're going to keep winning. So I love them at number 3. Number 4, we have Baden High School. They're 12-0, Tom. They haven't lost a regular season game in 45 years. They're playing in the high school regional, who gives a shit. And then, so I think I love their chances to get to the high school state finals and then lose there. Number 5, we have the Carolina Panthers. If the Carolina Panthers played in college sports, if this was a college team, Carolina Panthers would be really good. They'd be top 5 for sure. They're 1-7 right now in the NFL, but again, it's just because they have more college talent. So if you translate the college or the NFL team to the college league, we'd be fine. Carolina Panthers.
Tom, Baden plays Wapakoneta this week. You know who's a famous alum of Wapakoneta?
Yes, I do. Neil Armstrong.
Neil Armstrong. Meanwhile, Baden's famous alum is like Reed Mouse. Who do you think's more distinguished, Neil Armstrong or Reed Mouse?
Well, it all depends on what you're talking about.
That's what I'm saying.
All depends on what you're talking about.
One of us does a very helps on a very serious sports show, and
That's
the other one faked a moon landing. So,
all right, college football. I told you all along, I'm staying with Georgia until they lose. And they had another big injury last week. Remember, they lost Brock Bowers 3 weeks ago.
Where's Michigan?
Okay. And you have their starter linebacker, who just broke his arm in the game the other day against Missouri. Florida State undefeated 3, Washington undefeated 4. I have Texas 5. I don't have Michigan in there simply because.
Because why?
Because this whole thing
of an allegation, Tom.
It's more than an allegation.
Allegation, Tom.
It's more than an allegation. They are blatantly cheated. Now, who knew about it? Who didn't know about it? I don't know. And I hope we find out. But I can't put them in there. I just can't do it. And make no mistake, on the field, they have looked, in my opinion, the best of all the teams out there. They have been the most dominant team with beyond a shadow of a doubt in college football this year. They have been. But, when you start looking back, these last 2 years, even the most ardent Michigan fan, you do have to ask yourself this question, okay? Even if you hate Ohio State,
This is ridiculous.
and you love, you do have to ask yourself this question. The 3 years prior to 2021, when this sign stealing operation started,
Alleged.
with Connor Stallions, allegedly, Michigan was losing to Michigan State. They were losing to Indiana. There were people at Michigan that wanted Jim Harbaugh fired because Urban Meyer and early on Ryan Day beating their brains in. They weren't even a 500 team most years in the Big Ten. And now all of a sudden in 21 and 22, and here in 23, they've lost one conference game in the last 2+ years. It has to make you ask the question, does the sign stealing have anything to do with it? And if you say it has nothing to do with it, you are clearly wearing maize and blue, completely, not like where there's a little sunlight coming in on the side. It's those shades you used to buy when I was a kid that had the little leather thing wrapped around so no sunlight could get in. That's what you'd be wearing. Not saying it has everything to do with it, because they got great players. And I've always said Harbaugh is a great football coach. I believe that with all my heart. He is a great football coach. He'd be one of the top 5 coaches in the NFL. He was when he was there. He's one of the top 5 college coaches, no doubt about it. But this whole thing reeks, and you know it, and I know it.
Alleged.
Tom, come on. It's just because you guys haven't beat them in 2 years. That's
Got
why
nothing,
you're beating it
well,
down.
you know what? But does the sign stealing have anything to do with that? How does C.J. Stroud and Ohio State's offense
Does it have anything to do
put
with Ohio State's coach?
42 on the board against Georgia
When
last year in the national semifinal, and they averaged 24 a game in 2 meetings with Michigan the 2 prior years after their team averaging outside of every other game they played? And Ohio State doesn't play a bunch of stiffs out of conference. That team averaged 49 points per game. And they're getting in the 20s against Michigan, and then they play Georgia, and they go back into 40s? You mean to tell me that's not more than just coincidence?
Tom, who was Urban's last year? 2019, 2020?
18, 19, something like that.
28.
They put 60 on the board against Michigan.
So
60!
I'm just trying to do some math on when his last
60.
his
Urban.
last recruiting class would have been
Urban.
right around 2021.
It's a leader of men.
Would be seniors.
Not pro men, but college men.
So Ryan Day's guys get in there and they can't get the job done. That's all I see.
Well, you know what? And he's got to win that.
Sounds a lot like
Now, Austin says their recruiting is better. Austin, I agree with you. 100%. Talking about Michigan.
Derby
it's
stardom.
better than it was 4 years ago. They've had a lot of NFL draft picks. And I am not, Austin, the biggest homer you've ever seen. I'm just asking you a question. I'm not making a statement. I'm not making an argument in favor of it. I'm just asking you the question. Is there a possibility, now that we know about this sign stealing stuff that went on at Michigan for the last 2 years, is there a possibility, Austin? Possibility. You can put it at 5% if you want. But is there a possibility that with C.J. Stroud as the quarterback, where Ohio State had the #1 scoring offense in college football the last 2 years, averaging almost 50 points per game, that all of a sudden they play Michigan and they're averaging 25 2 years in a row, and then they go play Georgia, the back-to-back national championship team, and Ohio State puts 41 on them in a bowl game? You're telling me that you don't even put a fraction of a possibility that had something to do with sign stealing? Come on, Austin. You're better than that. All right.
Derby Stardom with a $10 super chat. Tom's editorial on Michigan is spot on. Michigan doesn't belong in the top 5. Not only Texas, but Alabama might be ahead of Michigan also.
Oh, and by the way, as it's pointed out also in the chat, Austin, back to you again. I'm not picking a fight here. We appreciate you being here. But, okay, TCU,
Texas Christian University,
played Michigan the game after Ohio State. Now, there was a month stretch there of not playing. But TCU played against Michigan the game after Michigan played Ohio State. We've already learned that Sonny Dykes, and this isn't like making stuff up here, Sonny Dykes has already admitted we had heard all these rumors about Michigan stealing signs. He changed his entire operation of the way he gave signs to Max Duggan, the quarterback. Okay? Changed the whole thing. And they put, 50 on Michigan? In the college football playoff? What was the final of that game?
It wasn't close, Tom.
It was close.
It was like 52-48.
But I'm saying TCU. So look at those last
51-45.
The only common denominator in this whole thing is Michigan, okay? So, from their defensive standpoint, Ohio State doesn't know that they're stealing the signs. They hold them to 25, 24 back-to-back years. The next game after Ohio State last year, they give up 50 to TCU, who says they had known all about this Michigan thing or had heard rumors about it, and they were changing the way they run the whole thing. They put 50 on Michigan. Ohio State puts 24-25 on Michigan, and they score 41 against Georgia.
This is...
I mean, this is more than coincidence, boys.
Tom,
Tom,
you need to get ESPN 30 for 30 in here, and we'll do a documentary on this. That's what we need, because I think that's where we are. There needs to be a full-on investigation, not by the NCAA, but by Tom.
See, Austin and I love Austin. I mean, I'm glad he's here, but he keeps pointing, well, did the sign stealing have anything to do with Donovan going off for 2 80-yard runs in the game? I don't know. Michigan has beaten Ohio State 2 years in a row, and good for them, unless they did it by cheating. I'm just asking you, Austin, is there not at least a little more than just some pretty serious circumstantial evidence here based on series of events that took place before, during, and after? That's all I'm asking you. The possibility. All right, Casey, stink list time. Let's go.
All right, stink list. Here we go. This is the Week 10 edition, the NFL edition of the stink list. And as you all know, I like to now reveal the stink list as we go through the list in the tiers. And we're starting with the nauseating part of this list. This is a group that these are all teams I just can't stand at the current moment. You
can't stand, or this is where they belong?
That's where I just can't stand them. I don't know. They some of them deserve probably to be in putrid. Some of them probably deserve to be maybe a little higher. But like the Raiders, like they just got a nice win. So I didn't feel like they deserved to be in putrid. Packers, they got a win too. Like I don't feel like these teams are as bad as people make them out to be. But they're definitely not great. They're not the best teams in the NFL. That's pretty much
Casey, by the way, I agree with all the teams on this list. So you're off to a good start.
Yeah. Yep. So then get to the stench. I promised Sean that I would not have the Browns in putrid because you know what? They don't deserve to be in putrid at the current moment. They've been winning some ball games, okay? They completely shut out the Cardinals. I give them their props. They made it into stench this week. And they're, when you look at how they go up against, they stack up against the rest of the league, I feel like that's a pretty good part in the list right here. I mean, the Saints, I feel like they're not as bad as you guys make them out to be.
They're
I think Pittsburgh's the worst 5.
Derek Carr's not a bad quarterback.
5-win team, but I just don't trust the Vikings at the current moment. Falcons, they're just dropping like a rock. That's the stench part of this list. Let's continue on.
I'm perplexed more and more every week. Please continue.
Yeah.
How do you have the Saints ahead of the Steelers?
They're a better football team than the Steelers.
Dumb.
Mouse Cop says Skip Bayless is 10 times better than us. That's pretty lame from your boy Mouse Cop.
Bills, Dallas, Seattle, they all stink right now. They're good teams, but they stink. Like they'll probably make it to a wild card spot. And they'll lose that game. That's how I feel about these 3 teams. They just
I agree.
Wrong with them.
I agree with the Cowboys.
I agree.
The other 2 teams, not so much.
These 3 teams, I would have dropped Miami a little bit more, but they did play the Chiefs, one of the best teams in the NFL, and they almost came back to at least tie the game.
Did Buffalo beat Miami this year?
They did
by 20,
by like 50.
Tom Casey, how do you have the Jaguars below the Fins? The Fins don't have a single win over a team that has a winning record.
The Jags are a bit fraudulent too, in my opinion.
Borderline.
I'm with Tom on it. I think they're a little fraudulent.
They beat the Bills. The Bills beat the Fins by 30.
Yeah, but in that same game, in that same exact game, Buffalo lost like 2 or 3 of their all-star defensive players. I just think if the Bills were healthy, I think they'd be a lot higher. How about that? They'd be a lot higher, but they're just not healthy. Josh Allen loves to stink it up when it matters most. So those are my teams in the odorless category. And then we go to the fresh category. These 3 teams here all have great Super Bowl hopes. I think San Francisco, they've just been dealing with injuries. I think if they had Trent Williams, if they had Debo, they would be winning some more ball games. Be definitely a lot closer against the Bengals than what they were. I still think that this team is one of the best teams in the NFL, despite what their record says. We're moving on to the exquisite category. The Texans, they're the number 1 team in the NFL right now. If the Bengals beat the Texans, man, the Bengals have to be the number 1 team in the NFL. And then, of course, we got the Eagles right behind the Bengals. I think those 2 teams, they're neck and neck in terms of roster. In terms of how well they're performing in the NFL right now. They're just slightly behind C.J. Stroud and the Texans. But, yeah, those are my top teams, echelon teams right now in the NFL.
Okay.
And then we get to what everyone's been waiting for.
Yes,
the putrid. These teams have now sneaked into the putrid part of the NFL season. We're halfway through the NFL season, and I see no light at the end of their tunnels. That's how I feel. Like they need another year after this year to still rebuild and get to where they want to go. Giants, they just got rid of Leonard Williams. Their defense looking really, really bad now. Same with Washington. They had a fire sale at the trade deadline. Patriots, they beat the Patriots, Elliot. That's why they're ahead of the Patriots.
Yeah, but they're 4 and 5. If you look at the NFC.
They just lost all their defensive stars. I don't expect them to win another game the rest of the year. And then same with the Patriots. They just stink. Cardinals, they just got rid of their best quarterback, Josh Dobbs.
Yeah, but they got Kyler Murray back this week.
I said what I said. They got rid of their best quarterback in Josh Dobbs to the Vikings. That was a mistake. And then the Panthers, man, they should not have traded what they did. They traded for Bryce Young. I think that was a really bad mistake at this point. They're in the putrid list. I think they're going to need a couple years to recover from that trade.
Okay,
so,
all right, digest this one more time here.
Yep.
Well, let me.
If you can figure it out, please send a message.
All right, Casey. So your team that you think is odorless, the Miami Dolphins, they're sitting at 6-3.
Correct.
Their 6 wins are against the Broncos, 2 against the Patriots, 1 against the Giants, and 1 against the Panthers.
That's right.
The Commanders, their 4 wins are against the Patriots, the Broncos, the Cardinals and the Falcons. They have almost identical wins.
Well, they have 2 less wins.
I get it, but neither team has wins over 5 teams over 500.
I get what you're saying. I just think that they're going to eventually figure it out. I think that they played one of the best teams in the AFC, and they barely lost. Let's not act like they got blown out. Like, I feel like they put up a good fight in the second half. They were down their best running back. I don't know. I think Devon Achane makes a big difference in this offense. I'm giving them – at first I was really hard on them because they lost.
Right.
But when you look at the game as a whole, I think they showed that they could go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs if they really were at full strength.
That's a fair statement.
Because they're also down Armstead. Like what?
They were 1 fumble 6 away from a win.
The Dolphins are frauds until they beat a team over 500. I'm not trying to say that the Commanders and the Dolphins are on the same category. I'm saying the Commanders need to be a little more respected going forward. 2 of the Commanders' losses, they put up 30 points on the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, but
30 points on the Eagles.
They just lost like half their defense. They just traded away half of their defense. That's the only reason why they're down there. It's because they've already admitted to the NFL that they're ready to move on and rebuild. So that's why they're down there to begin with.
I will be absolutely shocked. I think the Dolphins are going to get into the postseason. I will be absolutely shocked if they win a playoff game. Absolutely shocked.
That's silly.
I think that's silly too. But in the same vein, I will be surprised if the Jaguars make it past the divisional round. A lot of people love the Jaguars right now. I don't love them as much.
Playoff game.
I know. I'm just saying, like, I think both those teams can win a playoff game, and that's why they're in the same category with the Lions. I think those. Just gonna throw it up on the screen again. Those 3 teams, the Jags, Miami, and the Lions, I think can all win a playoff game, but I don't think they make it much further than that. I think they all have. I think they all have flaws.
Although you say that, but you say that, but then you ask yourself the question. Okay, let's just let's say Cleveland wins its first playoff game. I'll just pick them out of a hat.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we know Cleveland's defense is great. We've seen their offense really struggle, and it remains to be seen if Watson gets better as the season goes on. Okay, fine, now that he's back. But, I mean, I'm with you 100% on the Jaguars. Not so much the Dolphins. I don't see them winning a playoff game. But the Lions as well. But I'm going to stick with the Jaguars for a minute. Let's say Cleveland had to go play at Jacksonville in the second round. Just hypothetically. And I could see Jacksonville winning that game.
In the second round of the playoffs? Yeah. So that would be the divisional round?
I could see Jacksonville. I don't think Jacksonville is an upper echelon team. But depending on who they play and where they play them, if you look at the teams in the AFC right now, I mean, as we sit here right now, all 4 teams in the AFC North are in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Okay. Could I see Jacksonville beating Pittsburgh? Second game?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cleveland? Second game? Yeah.
You know who the Jags are?
And we're going to find out about the Bengals playing down in Jacksonville.
The Jaguars.
They play down there this year.
Yeah, December 5th.
The Jaguars are a poor man's Bengals. Like from top to bottom. Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow. Who would you rather have? Joe Burrow. Travis Etienne and Joe Mixon, you can have an argument there. But then you go to Calvin Ridley, Jamar Chase, Christian Kirk, T. Higgins, Evan Ingram, Tyler Boyd. The offensive line the Bengals got, I mean, Jaguars might have just improved that. We haven't seen much of that yet, but I would have taken the Bengals offensive line then. Jaguars defensive line, they have Josh Allen and they have Travion Walker, who's not proven anything yet so far. But I would much rather have our defensive line with DJ Reader, Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard.
And B.J. Hill.
You look at the secondary. I mean, I could just keep going, and they're literally just a poor man's Bengals.
That's a good analogy. That is a very astute analogy.
I think that the reason people aren't giving the Jaguars enough credit is because
he keeps doing
it's just
that.
like a car commercial.
He keeps doing it. I don't know if he's doing it on purpose.
If you're going to do that, at least use your British accent.
Hello.
Jaguar.
Jaguars.
The reason people aren't giving the Jaguars enough credit is simply because of their team name. That is the only reason. No, they're 12-3 over their last 15 games. They won a postseason game last year. And still, people aren't giving them enough credit. They'd rather give credit to the Miami Dolphins.
Well, I'm not giving any of the Dolphins.
Since Tua has joined the league in 2020, same draft, since he's played over the last 3 years, Tua has won just 3 games. 0 games against a team over 500. They've won just 3 games against teams that have made the postseason.
Yeah, they're a fraud. I'm with you all the way on Miami. All right, we got 10 minutes left in the show, and you have
top 5.
Yeah, and we do have a cherry on top.
Yeah. So let's go into my top 5. Casey, bring it on.
All right, here we
bring
go.
it on over here. Listen,
here we go.
The Bengals have been playing very good football, guys. They've been playing very good football. They were preseason one of the top dogs, betting favorites to win the Super Bowl, and they've over the past 2 weeks, over the past 3 weeks, have certainly lived up to the acclaim that they got before the year. So I started thinking, all right, if the Bengals keep playing like this, I don't think anybody can stop them. The question is, can they keep playing like this? So I started looking, what can stop the Bengals from winning the Super Bowl?
Oh, boy.
So without further ado, my top 5 this week are the 5 things that can stop the Bengals from winning the Super Bowl. Coming in at number 5 is, and this kills me to say, it truly does, but I'm trying to have a serious top 5 here. The Cleveland Browns. For some reason, Joe Burrow is 5-1 against Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, but he can't beat the Cleveland Browns. Every year, every game that they play,
True.
we get excited. We're like, hey, this is the time. We're playing better than them. We're doing better than them. Let's go show them that we're the Bengals and they're the godforsaken Browns, and every time the Browns just whip up on them. So I'm scared to death of Week 18 being the reason that the Bengals don't make the postseason. I'm scared that it's the reason that they don't get a home playoff game. All those things, the Browns are the 5th reason why the Bengals might not win the Super Bowl.
Okay, fair.
Coming in at number 4, this is the reason that the Bengals started 1-3. That's Joe Burrow's calf. Now, I know you don't want to see that picture. That was when he got hurt back in the preseason. But Joe Burrow's calf, if it flares up again, he's looked damn good recently. But if it flares up again, we're going back to the 1-3 start.
You're all over it.
Yeah, it's over. You're right. It's absolutely over. So if Joe Burrow's calf, he has a flare-up, then listen, the Bengals aren't doing what we want them to do.
Can I ask you one question before we get to the top 3?
Yeah.
Is this about to go south again?
No. Very serious, Tom. It's a very serious. Because you might be asking, what could be more detrimental to the Bengals than Joe Burrow's health? And the number 3 is, listen, we're going to go to Burrowhead again in the AFC Championship. It's the refs. I mean, they just get behind the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes pays them. Everyone knows that the NFL wants a big market like Kansas City to be in the Super Bowl every year. So it's the refs in Burrowhead. I mean, that phantom late hit, Joseph Asai, that put him in field goal range, the flop. Yeah. I mean, what are we talking about? The refs are the only reason, or the 3rd reason why the Bengals can't get back to the Super Bowl and win. All right, as we head into number 2, I look at the Bengals roster, and I say, this is a roster that can win the Super Bowl. Please, please, please don't let anything happen to this roster. Who is best at dismantling a roster in professional sports? So what scares me is that the Bengals get crawled. I mean, everyone knows that Nick Kroll just absolutely just kills good rosters. Well, I mean, he makes the trades with the Minnesota Twins. What did the Twins do this year? That's right, absolutely nothing. They didn't win a postseason game. Who's another frequent trader with the Cincinnati Reds and Nick Kroll? The Miami Marlins. What'd they do this year? Exactly, absolutely nothing. They constantly are trading with the Seattle Mariners. They didn't make the postseason last year. They weren't up for the AL West this year. So getting crawled is absolutely a way that the Bengals cannot make the Super Bowl. And coming in at number 1, over getting crawled is, I think you guys knew where this was going. If Drew Sample gets hurt, the season's over. We can't let Drew Sample get hurt. He is our national treasure. He is the main reason that we have gotten to won 4 games in a row, 5-3 in the league. I mean, if Drew Sample goes down, then we should just go ahead and pack it up. We honestly shouldn't even play the rest of the games. We got to protect Drew Sample at all costs. But those are the top 5 reasons that the Bengals might not make it to the Super Bowl and might not be Super Bowl champions this year. Tom, out of the top 5, where did you think I went wrong?
I think you went wrong on 1 and 2. Your first 3 were solid. 1 and 2, I think Nick Kroll's pretty good at building a roster.
Listen, I understand that. He's done a damn good job. And teams that he trades with, they are terrible. What did the Minnesota Twins do this year, Tom? What did the Seattle Mariners done over the past 2 years? What did the Marlins do? I mean, they get crawled, and then they're at the bottom of the MLB. So I'm just scared to death that the Bengals are going to make a trade with the Reds and get crawled.
That was good stuff. That's good stuff. Is there anything else on anyone's chest they want to get off their chest before we go any further?
No, we're good.
What is this Kirby back tonight? What's Nick?
They're doing the Reds show tonight.
They are.
Yeah, they're doing an off-season preview, I believe. I don't know what time it is. I think it's 7:30.
Nick and Trace?
Yep, Nick and Trace.
Really?
Yep.
Okay, we have box lunch today right after this, right?
Right,
That's right.
Okay, so that's coming up next. Nick, help me here. What time are you coming on? Because Trace isn't in the office right now. 9:30. All right. That's good stuff. It's one of the 10 most popular baseball show podcasts on the planet. I'm not making that up. That's the truth. Mm-hmm. Enormously popular last year. Thousands and thousands of people watching after each and every Reds game. So they're going to be previewing this offseason for the Redlegs. And I'm assuming that Nick is, that article in The Athletic yesterday about the Reds postseason talked about how
Reds postseason.
Postseason, now that it's over, about what they're going to do here this offseason is Nick Kroll going to finally have to start trading some prospects to get pitchers? Because they're not going to be able to afford pitchers. Mm-hmm. There aren't enough of them. Right. And they're going to make the sun, the moon, and the stars. So, now wouldn't that be interesting?
What?
If you started deciding, now we can trade prospects. But we couldn't do it when we're in the middle of a pennant race. We're not going to trade any of our guys. But we'll trade some of our guys 3 months later when we're 0-0.
Get a full year with a guy, though. Get a full year with a guy. Not just a couple months.
Okay.
One thing I know, Tom, is that if they do make a trade, the team that they trade with will not have any success this year because that has been...
That's the MO.
That's the MO.
Yes.
You make a trade with Nick Kroll, nothing good happens to your franchise going forward.
Get crawled.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And I was wrong. It's at 9:30.
We said that.
Sorry.
It's 9:30. We said that.
Sorry, I was...
Okay, now tomorrow, before we get to our cherry on top, tomorrow we have... I'm trying to remember. We have Jay Morrison joining us tomorrow to talk about the Bengals and getting ready, and he's down there today at Paycor, and he'll have the whole story on Jamar Chase. And then, believe it or not, it took almost a solid 8-10 hours to get a reply from Big League Paul.
Oh, that's my God.
That's right.
Quitter Paul Fritzner. You guys gave him that nickname, not me.
No, you did.
I did
You've been
not.
saying that, Tom, for forever.
So he is going to join us to talk more about Xavier basketball. And I'm looking forward to seeing Big League Paul.
I'll be missing the show tomorrow.
You're missing tomorrow?
No. I was making a joke.
He was making it silly.
Now, for our cherry on top, I told you I went back and watched the remaining 3 holes of the golf match and our show yesterday, the pummeling at Potter's Field, where Elliott took on Sean Spurlock. Elliott's caddy was Trace Fowler. What is the young man's name who basically was Sean's caddy?
Matt Mays, nicknamed Booby Mays. He's the
Booby.
he's the second best catcher that's been on Chatterbox programming.
That's
Okay.
Boobie.
Like Booby Clark,
Yes.
the old Bengal.
Yep.
Oh, yes.
Booby Mays.
Yep, I think it's from Friday Night Lights, the movie, right? If you want to win, put Booby in. What was that character's name?
I think it was Boobie. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, well, anyway,
Running back, right?
so
Booby
he
Miles.
was Sean's caddy, meaning he was driving Sean around in the golf cart. And this, I want you to just watch Boobie's face. This is after basically Sean is finished up and things are not going to go their way. But this is worth 10,000 words. That is one of the great shots of all time. Run that again, Casey.
Run it again.
Just Boobie's part. As this guy is walking off.
He's wearing a lead paint outfit.
That is priceless. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And round 2 tomorrow.
Round 2, we are going tomorrow.
Tough track.
Tough
Good luck.
Tough track. It's my home course, though. Hour and a half away from my house.
I was getting ready to say. I mean, are you kidding me?
I picked
You're
that.
driving
I
up
picked,
there with all the high nooners for your home course?
I picked that course because I thought it was closer to here, and it is. So it's about 30 minutes from here to get there. But from my house, it's about an hour and a half. Yeah, But I tried to be nice for these guys. Instead of 45 minutes my way, I give them 30 minminutes that way, and nice and easy.
Okay.
If I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't have done it. But
All right.
Should have done Indian Ridge.
sure.
Well, we'll keep you updated on any last-minute sort of developments in the preparations for both Elliot and Sean, round 2. We thank all of you for being with us. Box Lunch is coming up right now. Gentlemen, thank you so much. As always, thank all of you for being with us. We'll see you tomorrow, but time for Box Lunch. Here we go!
I must admit, I didn't think much of this show the first time I laid eyes on it. Seemed like a bunch of stiffs wasting nice
The worst trade
microphones.
of all time happened back in 1803. Go ahead. Napoleon Bonaparte traded the Louisiana Purchase for